Welcome to Worldview Matters, discussing controversial issues, discerning current events, defending biblical Christianity. No topic off limits. And now, here's your host, David Fiorazo.
Hello, friends. What a week it's been, and I love the people I get to talk to. So, on Monday on Worldview Matters, right here, we talked with Tony Gurule, Vice President of RadicalTruth.net. Great website, a lot of great resources, and they are very relevant to our times when we talk about the Middle East and Israel and Palestine. We're going to talk about that today. So, Tony, welcome back to the show, brother. Let's do another one.
Thanks, Dave. It's great to be back with you and your audience.
Yeah, let's kick it off. We're going to talk about Palestine, where that word came from, and what the debate is all about. But let's go to an article on your website. This one is kind of amazing. Everyone saw, well, not everyone, people that paid attention to the news saw our own state capital, Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, be overwhelmed by protesters. And that was like this call for whatever, violence or a day of protest. Hamas called it, or whoever called it, they tried to do that. And by the way, they were not called insurrectionists. And anyway, we'll let that go for now. The headline, Rashida Tlaib whips up mob with lies about bombed Gaza hospital, incites Capitol insurrection. So she is a member of Congress in our government. She is pro-Hamas, and she doesn't hide it. We'll talk about the squad a little later, but she just seemed to whip up these people into a frenzy. So, Tony, tell us why this matters, because it's in our own country, and what exactly are these people supporting?
Well, Dave, when the presentation came out probably about 4 years ago, the Muslim Brotherhood, Origin, Identity, and Agenda, I mentioned that not only is Rashida Tlaib a shill for the Muslim Brotherhood, but the rest of the squad members are as well.
Yep.
And if you don't know about the Muslim Brotherhood, well, that's not surprising because they don't make the nightly news. Why? Because they aren't carrying guns like the jihadists out there. However, it's important to know that the Muslim Brotherhood and the Islamist groups have the same end goal as the jihadists, and that is to have the world under Islamic law. And again, if you look to Europe or Canada, which are all ahead of us as far as Islamization, you can see the way that we are headed. And that's why we came out with not only the Muslim Brotherhood presentation, but Lights Out When Islam Rules America as well. And you will see right now, it's just another, another hot topic of news stories because of what's happening over there. But you're seeing the Islamists pushing for support of Hamas, which is a terrorist organization. Hamas is the Palestinian branch of the Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood was created in 1928 by Hassan al-Banna in Egypt. And they have the same end goal as the jihadists. And as you can see, the physical fighting out there, yes, Islamists do participate in physical fighting as well. It's just not their primary goal like it is of the jihadists themselves when you think of ISIS and Al-Qaeda, Boko Haram, etc. But they all have the same end goal as the Muslim Brotherhood. And if you study the Muslim Brotherhood, you'll know why Islamists are doing what they're doing. It's no surprise whatsoever.
There's an interesting parallel. You mentioned the Muslim Brotherhood. I think Monday when we talked, we mentioned that they're wearing suits. They're carrying briefcases. They have jobs. They're in our government because they're not dressed in the radical gear, with the, turbans on or the facial coverings and with all the weaponry and the vests and all that. No, they have infiltrated, and that is one of the actual parts of the agenda, isn't it, Tony? They infiltrate. I don't know if that's the right word. They don't assimilate. They infiltrate other societies. Go ahead.
Yeah, or you probably heard the term stealth invasion, a very important book written by Leo Hohmann, which I think in the last 6 months was banned on Amazon. And I was thinking, Dave, maybe I need to get a hold of him and do a show called Stealth Invasion Equals Lights Out. Because pretty much, he talks about the invasion, and I'm talking about, that as well, but also what's happening around that and what the end goal is. But yeah, that is the goal. And yes, there is infiltration of the U.S. government. It's been happening for years. And Dave, before 3 years ago, a lot of people were concerned about Islamization. But no surprise, less people are concerned now because in the last 3 years, all of a sudden now they're they're concerned about communism coming to America, which we've done episodes on that too. We have done episodes on BLM and the red-green revolutions and all that. I mean, there's a history of communists working with Islamists. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. If they both hate America, they will work together for the overthrow of America from within. However, their own ideologies cannot, at the end, coexist. Because how do we know that? In communist China, Muslims are being persecuted in addition to Christians being persecuted. In Islamic countries, you're not in power if you're not a Muslim. So communism and Islamism are not compatible. But again, they're working together in the meantime to destroy America.
Thank you for mentioning BLM, which is the Black Lives Matter Global Network or Global Foundation Network. It's a global movement, Marxist driven, and they did side with Hamas. They put out a statement. I think they were doing one of the pro-Palestinian, parades or not parades, protests. Yeah, parades. They're walking down the streets with their flags. Yeah. Anyway, call it what you will. Let's talk, Tony Gurule, about Palestine. Where does that word come from? We are people of the Bible. It's mentioned in the Bible, briefly, I think, in Isaiah, and we know the Philistines are mentioned a lot in the Old Testament. So take us back, and why this confusion about where is Palestine?
Yeah, and this is why it's so important, Dave, that people watch the episode or listen to the podcast of our show called Israel or Palestine, which is it? Because when you watch or listen to that, you're gonna get all the historical information, which puts all the pieces together and will allow you right away to realize what's actually happening and which side you should be supporting here. Because in the late 1800s and even the early 1900s, Israel/Palestine was part of the Ottoman Empire, and it wasn't a large amount of people who lived there. I mean, back then, you're talking about 1/30th of the population in that area today. It was very small amount of people compared to present. And it used to be kind of called, that land south of Syria, or southern Syria, or people referred to it as in different ways. But it was in 1924 is when the Ottoman Empire fell. And it was around that time you can look up the history as far as the British and all and that. Basically, it was given from the Ottoman Empire to the League of Nations. The League of Nations said, okay, British, you can, kind of oversee what's going on there, kind of thing. So it wasn't stolen from anybody. The Ottoman Empire, had fallen. Now, the thing is that you see maps today of the supposed areas of Palestinian territory that was lost over the years and so on. But that term itself, we have to talk about where did that come from. Now, there's a Palestine Post newspaper.
Yes.
And you guys might have an image to show, but this is the state of Israel is born. And people say, look, Israel was just this invented place. It used to be Palestine. It was stolen. And now it's called Israel. And you'll see the maps showing the Palestinian loss of land from 1946 to 2010, looking like the Palestinians had all this territory, and now they have very little. And you have to look at the Palestinian territories, Gaza, West Bank, and it's a little bit of green now. The thing is that if we need to incorporate the religious aspect of this, because this is exactly what Muslims are doing, Dave. Muslims are doing what they're doing because of their Islamic worldview. Now, the Quran is being the main book in Islam. How many times does the Quran mention Palestine? It's a big fat 0. How many times does the Quran mention Palestinians? Oh, that would be 0 as well. Now, don't you think it would have been important for a law to make sure that, those terms were in the Quran?
Right.
But the thing is that they weren't even important at that time. And here's the thing, is that prior to the AD 130s, these territories were just known as Judea and Galilee, as they're mentioned in the Bible. That's what the Romans called these areas, Judea and Galilee. Now, it was around 130 AD, Anno Domini is Latin for in the year of our Lord. Around 130, after a Jewish revolt, the Roman Emperor Hadrian called this territory Palestina out of spite for the Jews. Now, why would that be a spite for the Jews, and why would he call it that? Because if you read the Old Testament, the Israelites were fighting the Philistines over and over again.
Yep.
So out of spite for the Jews, he called it Palestina. That's where it began. And in the early 20th century, the term Palestinian referred to Jews and anyone who was born and lived in that area. They were all Palestinians. The Jews actually said, hey, we're Palestinians. Why? Because that was the territory that was theirs back in history, right? And you read throughout the Old Testament, God promised them, and we're going to get into that, God promised the Jews way more than we see modern Israel is today.
Yes.
But the thing is that around the time of the Muslim Brotherhood and the creation of that, one of Hassan al-Banna, who was the creator and founder of the Muslim Brotherhood, one of his disciples was Haj Amin al-Husseini. He was a Muslim Nazi and the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem. He was also the uncle of Yasser Arafat. So al-Husseini was the father of Palestinian nationalism. And we have a number of documentaries available on our video channels giving you actual video footage of al-Husseini, him meeting with Hitler, and the fact that he wanted to create gas chambers in the Middle East to take care of the Jews himself. So many Islamists, many Muslims throughout the world hate Jews just as much as Hitler did, if not more, because Islamic Jew hatred began with Muhammad himself. We talked about some of that history in the last episode. Now, if I tell you, Dave, that Palestine, that term, and the term Palestinians are simply propaganda terms that are used to delegitimize the nation of Israel, you and maybe other people say, oh, well, that's just your opinion. Now, Dave, this is what I want to share with all of your listeners.
Okay.
And I want to let them know about Zahir Hussein, who lived from 1936 to 1979. He was a military commander of the Palestine Liberation Organization. And while you keep that picture there, let me give you his exact quotes that he gave in an interview in 1977 in the Dutch newspaper Trouw. He said, "We are all part of one people, the Arab nation. We are one people. Just for political reasons, we carefully underwrite our Palestinian identity because it is of national interest for the Arabs to advocate the existence of Palestinians to balance Zionism. The Palestinian people does not exist. The creation of a Palestinian state is only a means for continuing our struggle against the state of Israel for our Arab unity. Only for political and tactical reasons do we speak today about the existence of a Palestinian people, since Arab national interests demand that we posit the existence of a distinct Palestinian people to oppose Zionism." Last but not least, Palestinian identity only exists for tactical purposes. The establishment of a Palestinian state is a new tool to continue the fight against Israel and for Arab unity. That's it.
New tool. What year did he say that? The 30s?
1977.
Oh, 77. Okay. I thought it went back further than that. But I do want to go back further, Tony, because I'm reading something online here over at gotquestions.org. And they say that the Israel Philharmonic Orchestra was originally called the Palestine Symphony Orchestra. And also, as you mentioned, the name for the Jerusalem Post used to be the Palestine Post. And these were in the 1930s. They're founded in the 1930s, but now they changed. So it's very interesting that, as you said, a lot of the Jews apparently said, yeah, we're in Palestine, or we're Palestinians. And gosh, that was almost 100 years ago.
Yeah, Dave, people need to study more than 50, 100 years ago. It doesn't matter if you're talking about climate change or if you're talking about the Palestinians, right? What was the history before 50 to 100 years ago? Yes, using the term Palestinian to refer to Muslims is less than 100 years old. That's a fact. Because as he said in 1977, you figure the Muslim Brotherhood was created in 1928. It can't be any older than that, because Haj Amin al-Husseini was a disciple of Hassan al-Banna, the creator of the Muslim Brotherhood. So when you watch these news stories, again, you know right away why the Islamists, communists, and socialists, by the way, the goal of socialism is communism. That's what Vladimir Lenin said himself. The communists and Islamists are working together, and it's a game of divide and conquer, just like black versus white, just like Christians versus Muslims and everything else. But the thing is that the Muslims versus anybody, specifically the people of the book, Jews and Christians, started, according to tradition, with Muhammad himself 1,400 years ago.
They are working to take out the West, meaning the Christianized West, North America, specifically the United States, because Canada kind of, with Emperor Trudeau and the government there. But I'll tell you, there's some things that are coming across our border too. Let's go back to another article just briefly on your website. What happened a few weeks ago, well, I'm not talking about October 7th, which was horrific, and we've talked quite a bit about that on this show. But days after that, when Israel was doing their counterattack, they were shooting back some rockets, Hamas was, from Gaza. And apparently the story is, and what we've seen from graphs and videos trying to figure this out, one of their own missiles or rockets hit the hospital. It wasn't an Israeli airstrike, from what we understand. Now, that wasn't put out in the media right away. The media said, oh, Israel hit a hospital. But there's an article on your site that says the squad member posts fake photo of hundreds of dead Palestinian kids. This is at radicaltruth.net. And it was a lie. It was a lie. Now, that doesn't, in Islam, you get a badge of honor for lying, right? It's not like Christianity where thou shalt not bear false witness. And this is propaganda, Tony, what you were talking about. That's what wins revolutions oftentimes. Aside from the military or those conquests, propaganda kind of gets the ground ready. So tell us a little bit about this. It's an article from your website, and you mentioned the squad. You've talked a lot about them, and they're dangerous, and they spew hatred.
Well, Dave, as far as the hospital, it wasn't a hospital; it was the parking lot of the
parking
hospital.
Lot, technically,
and
yes.
And the follow-up news stories reveal that. So anyone who's trying to stir up anything, saying that a hospital was hit, is false. They're lying. Or maybe they just don't know their facts, right? So they need to study. Now, as far as the children that you talked about, those pictures were from, I think, like 10 years ago. They were from when Assad and all that was in the news. So they're basically just recycling pictures, trying to stir people up. But the thing is that at the end of the day, lies are not defensible, and the truth is on our side. So people just need to be educated. You have Muslims throughout the world leaving Islam because they're finding out about what Islam really teaches. They're finding out what the life of Muhammad was actually like. They're realizing that there is no evidence for Allah, especially philosophically, because it falls apart. People are learning the good news about Jesus Christ, and Muslims throughout the world are repenting and putting their trust in him, and ex-Muslims make great Christians. So as much as people want to make you think that there's a political solution to all this, there isn't. This is a spiritual battle that's going on, and the gospel of Jesus Christ is what all people need to hear. And the reason why it's so important, especially when it comes to Islam, not that all non-Christians need the gospel, but when it comes to Muslims, you're talking 1.6 billion people throughout the world. It's the fastest growing false religion in the world. It's the biggest religion after Christianity itself. So we need to continue to share the gospel with people, and we need to let them know what the Bible actually says about all this. Because, Dave, we have another map picture, and I just want to show people the map with all the green, because this lets people understand how small Israel is and how small this piece of land is.
Where is Israel?
You can't even hardly see it.
Right.
Dave, all these green countries are Islamic countries.
Yeah.
And Israel is the small, you can't hardly see it on the map because it's so small.
Yeah.
People need to understand this is not about land. Any of these green Islamic countries could give the Palestinians, quote unquote, 50 times the amount of land that they have in Israel and say, come live here. It's not about land. It's about the people. Islamic Jew hatred. They want to wipe out the people.
Right.
And here's the thing, is that we have the biblical accounts of the territory that God promised to Abraham and his descendants. And I want to give people some biblical verses so they understand that the territory, modern day Israel / Palestine, is much smaller than what God promised to the Jews.
That's right.
If you read Exodus 23, verses 31 through 33, it says, I will set your border from the Red Sea to the Sea of the Philistines and from the wilderness to the Euphrates, for I will give the inhabitants of the land into your hands, and you shall drive them out before you. You shall make no covenant with them and their gods. They shall not dwell in your land, lest they make you sin against me. For if you serve their gods, it will surely be a snare to you. And Exodus 33, 1 through 2, the Lord says to Moses to depart from here, you and your people who have been brought out of the land of Egypt to the land of which I swore to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, saying to your offspring, I will give it. Then I will send an angel before you, and I will drive out the Canaanites, the Amorites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. And then in Joshua 1:4, from the wilderness and this Lebanon, as far as the great river, the river Euphrates, all the land of the Hittites to the great sea toward the going down of the sun shall be your territory. Now, Dave, we have a map here of the Middle East. And because Radical Truth is based in the great state of Texas, I have Texas on this map to give you an idea of how big Texas is compared to the Middle East there.
That's funny.
Now think about this, folks. The land that God promised the Jews does not only include all of modern day Israel, it also includes the West Bank, Gaza, some of Egypt, some of Syria, all of Jordan, some of Saudi Arabia, and some of Iraq. Those are the true areas that should belong to the Jews according to the Bible itself. So guess what? If anyone should be complaining about land right now, who should be complaining?
Well, the Jewish people. That's right. Israel.
Exactly.
I saw a meme. I'm not sure if it was the Babylon Bee or not, but I saw a meme with that other map with how tiny Israel is, the size of New Jersey, but on the map it was just a speck, and all the other nations, Muslim nations around it. And it says, "Boy, if Israel is accused of being colonizers, they've done a pretty bad job of taking over land and colonizing." A couple more minutes
now, Dave,
Go ahead, Tony.
Speaking of that, Dave, here's something to think about. Iran and Saudi Arabia, which have the most strict Islamic law in the world and are under full Sharia, they were never colonized. And look at life there. They were never westernized, quote unquote, because of colonization. Now, here's the thing too. Around, man, I'm trying to think of how many years, around the beginning of the 8th century, the Middle East was about 95% Christian. The entire thing. Today, it's less than 6%. So what caused that? Islam caused that, but more specifically, Islam according to Muhammad, not Islam according to your Muslim neighbor who was born in America and would never want to live under Sharia law.
Yeah. Thank you for reiterating that point. Islam according to Muhammad. Briefly, Tony, we just have a few more minutes, and we're going to have to talk about this again in a future show, but immigration. We've got open borders in America, and it's not just women and children coming across the border. I see a lot of pictures of a lot of adult men, males in their 20s and 30s. That's the bulk of the people coming across the border. But let's go back to an article that just came up recently. It says Jamal Brown, he's a representative in D.C., Democrat, Jamal Bowman, and other leftists are calling on the U.S. to take in Palestinian refugees from Gaza. Tony, what could go wrong? Your thoughts on some of the problems we have here with not only with our immigration, the southern border, but what they're doing, who they are funding and sending money to, yeah, sure, we'll take them, right?
Yeah. To know the end goal of this, all you need to do is watch Lights Out When Islam Rules America, because you'll see the news stories that came out in Europe many years ago. Islamization of Europe's been taking place for a long time. But also, Dave, what's really hurt Europe and allowed the Islamization to take place regardless of who's coming in, is the fact that Europe has lost its Christianity. And in America, here's the thing. I have this right here to my side. The Constitution and Bill of Rights, whether people want to believe it or not, or whether they agree with it or not, these aren't laws, these aren't rights that are given by man. These are God-given rights that are recognized by the Constitution and Bill of Rights. And these are founded and based on the Bible. But what are people doing? They're attacking the Bible. They're attacking the name of Christ. They want the 10 Commandments removed off display. They want people want to reject objective morality, which comes from God. They want to remove all Christianity. And what does that do? That leaves the Constitution and Bill of Rights firmly planted in midair, and it leaves a vacuum. And if you leave a vacuum, what is the book that will come in and become the base of that Constitution and Bill of Rights? And that is the Quran from an Islamic perspective, or maybe Mein Kampf from a communistic perspective, right? Yeah. And if communism or Islam became the base of the Constitution and Bill of Rights, the Constitution and Bill of Rights would change. Now, people need to realize that all that we're seeing around us is a spiritual battle, and the gospel's the ultimate solution to that.
Amen. Amen, brother. I think we couldn't have ended on a more powerful note, because the gospel is the power of God. The word is alive and active, sharper than any double-edged sword. And our mission doesn't change no matter what's going on in the country. But man, things are happening prophetically. I mean, things that we've never seen before, and potentially overwhelming, but they're exciting times. If you're a Christian who is saved, a converted believer, we know what we have to look forward to. But if we love others, we will tell them the truth. And that's why I appreciate you, brother, at Radical Truth. Tony, we will do this again. So much more to talk about, but I encourage people to go and check out some of those episodes that Tony mentioned. Brother, good to see you and talk to you again. God bless you.
Thanks so much, Dave. You too.
All right, thank you. All right, friends, let me share what's going on next week. It's Pastors Week here on Worldview Matters. We're starting in Australia, and I've got a brother, Dean Dwyer. He's a pastor there in Australia. You can read some of his work at harbingersdaily.com. He will be with us. Also, Joe Schimmel from Southern California. Dr. Andy Woods will be back with us. He's from Texas and from Illinois. Pastor John Pennell. We're going to do part 2 of Freemasonry and the Lodge, and talk about that, some of the symbols and what they mean, what they stand for, some of the beliefs, and so we'll talk more about that. Guys, thank you again for tuning in and for sharing and supporting the podcast, the show. God bless you, and as always, keep speaking the truth about things that matter.